One of my goals with the Seeker podcast is to make the supernatural more natural and the paranormal more normal. These are events and occurrences that happen as a part of our natural and normal everyday lives. We've just been conditioned to ignore them and deny their existence. Well, it's time to undo that conditioning. I'm proud to announce that Ray Davis and I of Sixth Sense Media have created our own Sixth Sense Media clothing line. We can't always go up to somebody and say, hey, what do you think about disclosure and UFOs and aliens on the Earth? But you can wear one of our Disclosure Now t-shirts and get people's attention, start the conversation, or connect with another like-minded person who sees your shirt. If you're a truth seeker, or someone looking to enact positive change in the world, why not wear it with pride? Connect with other like-minded truth seekers and become the change you want to be and see in this world. Visit sixthsensemedia.net, click on the store tab, and become the change you were born to inspire. Visit sixthsensemedia.net, click on the store. Welcome to Truth Seekers.
Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there.
Who are we, really? What is our greater connection to this universe? Are we on some form of a prison planet? Are we living within the brain of an artificial intelligence? Are we trapped within the matrix? Or are we just fragmented aspects of a higher piece of consciousness, which we can call our higher self, that's directing us through this existence as we propel our way through the perceived galaxy of life? Hi, Truth Seekers. Dennis Nappy II with Sixth Sense Media, and you better believe on this episode of the Seeker Podcast, we will certainly challenge reality, question that which we've been taught, and hope to inspire a new direction of thought to bring about change, as my friend, fellow crypto viewer, teammate, and remote viewer Edward Riordan joins us on the podcast, and he certainly makes the paranormal normal and the supernatural natural. We go pretty far down the rabbit hole. He was tasked with a remote viewing project to look at pi. And you think pi 3.14 blah blah, I don't know past that. It's used in calculating the circumference of a circle and all these different formulas and geometry and mathematics, but it is so much more. And I say that with confidence, having worked with Edward on a weekly basis now, seeing the accuracy of his data. That doesn't mean that everything he says is accurate, but I can rely on him as a source of information among many. And the conversation I'm about to share with all of you, it had a profound impact on me. When he was going through this, I was talking to him as he was, running through this target, and he just, for a while, he wasn't ready to talk about it because he had to process everything. Now, I didn't connect with the target. I didn't remote view the target, but from my conversation with him, I can't wait. We're going to get to that in a minute. So stay tuned for that discussion with Edward Riordan. You're going to want to get comfortable, and you're just going to want to listen because it's a profound, it's a beautiful, inspiring, deep, thought-provoking conversation that gets to, in some aspects, who are we and what is out there and in here. So I look forward to sharing that with you. I had a bunch of news stories that I was going to get into. I just finished up this conversation with Edward, and honestly, I just think we need to go right to his conversation. I don't want to shadow that with news. I am going to give a self-plug here, which I can't help myself. I'm so proud. Food for the Archons. I am human. Food for the Archons. Humanity's psychic connection Parallel Worlds, Simulated Realities, and the Manipulation of Mankind. My book is now available for Kindle and for paperback. You can find that on Amazon or at sixthsensemedia.net. Just type in Food for the Archons and you will find it, and you can pick yourself up a copy. The feedback I've been getting has been phenomenal. I'm so thankful to those of you out there who are supporting this project, so please check that out. This has been an important journey for me, so your support is greatly, greatly appreciated. All right, my friends, like I said, I'm going to forego the news this week and get right to Edward and my discussion. All right there, Truth Seekers, I'm very excited. I have my friend on the line, my good friend Edward Riordan. He's the remote viewer. We've done 2 shows on the Seeker podcast together already, and Edward is a guy that, in some aspects, has changed my life. Through my connection with him, we talked about remote viewing QAnon. That was one of the deepest shows that I think I've done, and through him, I was able to connect with the crypto viewing team, and that has been such an incredible, incredible journey. And Edward is such a unique and talented remote viewer in just the detail that he pulls out and the weird stuff that tends to happen when I talk to him on the phone, as was just going on. My phone shut down on me and kind of crashed. I had to reset as soon as I got on the line with him. So hopefully we can make it through this conversation without the archons or the powers that be out there messing with us. But Edward, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
Hey, Dennis, I'm doing great, man. And hopefully we can keep the connection here for the conversation.
If not, we'll make it work as we always do, you know?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
So, I was talking about our connection with the crypto viewing team, man. How would you describe that experience thus far with what we've been learning and looking at and going through?
Well, the crypto viewing team, is it's great, man. It's like a remote viewer's dream come true. You got the viewers like myself and Dick Allgaier and Dad Smith, and I call us, we're the 30,000 hour team. We put about 30,000 hours in or so a piece into our exploration of remote viewing. And so for us to be a team is it's wonderful. It's just great to be able to work with those guys and be able to share and explore, learn from each other. And it's kind of like the Beatles, they were really, really phenomenal together. And then they're great solo, but man, is it great when they're together.
Yeah.
I mean? And so on a remote viewing level with those guys, it's very rewarding. And then to have the rest of the team and you and Ed at HQ and everybody. It's just it's an ensemble that's being put together that is unique, and it's a first of this level in regards to remote viewing, in my opinion.
Yeah, at least publicly, yeah. Absolutely,
and it's great, and I get to hang out with people like you, man.
We have fun every week, don't we?
Absolutely, that's mandatory.
Yeah.
It gets heavy, and you have to you got to be able to find humor, and you have to be able to find the absurdity in it, and capitalize on things that are going to make you laugh. And humor is mandatory in my house, man.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. Like when I was a police officer, humor is what got us through it, because you'd go in and you'd see some horrible stuff, and if you weren't able to joke about it with your buddies, you're going to go home just a total basket case. And what we're looking at with the crypto team, some of the stuff it's scary. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And our ability to laugh, not at what we're seeing, but just to make jokes along the way and behind the scenes and stuff. for me, that like I walk away from our sessions with a smile on my face, laughing how we tease each other and laugh about stuff, and that really helps. It makes a difference.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And these are heavy topics, and you gotta get through it. It's like a therapy,
Yeah.
And so, in like I say, in my house, laughter and humor is absolutely mandatory.
Yeah, as it should be, and the work we're doing, I think, on the team. Number one, seeing the viewers, you, Dick, and Daz work together. I mean, you guys are harmony. You guys are like a fine-tuned instrument. And then when you guys get on target, a lot of times your information, although different, it fits, it harmonizes, it corroborates. I can't stress enough. I mean, I've tried really hard with this platform to build, not that I need to, but to build credibility of remote viewing as a reliable source of data. Not the end-all, be-all, but something that we should consider when we're planning for the future or trying to look at an event and understand what happened. And if you're skeptical out there, I encourage you to check out, just find one session on the crypto team, sign up for 1 month and watch what the viewers do. I mean, it's astounding every week to say, wow, how did you guys get that?
Yeah, absolutely. And what's really great, with Dick and Daz and myself is that, we will kind of attack a target from different angles and kind of grab a few. Dick will grab a few pieces, and Dad will grab a few pieces, and I'll grab a few pieces, and it kind of helps to make a bigger picture.
Yeah.
And that makes it really, really rewarding. It's like it's definitely a relationship that is forged. And the majority of it, is in the remote viewing realm. So there's like a remote viewing level of intimacy there, and relationship and bonding. That is really rewarding.
Yeah, it's and I know, although I'm not a viewer, there's been connections, certain things, like I'll be going through something stressful, and within 2 seconds of me thinking, man, I wish I had somebody to talk to about it, somebody from the team will call me or email me or text me. And it's like, wow, everybody's kind of entrained and connected, which is pretty cool.
It is, man. It's great being on a team. Being on a team is the best, man.
Yeah, I was doing this alone for so long, and it's like, and you sit there and you're like, am I nuts? I mean, what's going on? I mean, you know how that can be. And then to connect with other people who are just as nuts as you are, it's like, all right, at least I got company.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like for in the viewing world, I mean, we've been at this for 20 years, 20 plus years, and those were majority. I can't speak for Dick and Dad, but I'm sure it probably was. But most of them were very lonely years. Before everything became so YouTube and everything else, it was hacking and slashing, and it was a total sacrifice because there was no return.
Yeah.
And and it's like your story is no different. You hack and you slash. You don't know why, but you just know you have to.
Yeah.
And then when you least expect it, there's the door.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Yeah.
And I still, am amazed and thankful for how you and I connected, because you had a decent following on YouTube, and I was like, wow, this guy has an interesting thing to say. Let me send him an email. I never expect you to write back because most people don't get back to me. And you responded.
I tell you.
Yeah.
I tell you what, man, I get emails, I get comments, and, no offense to the people who send them and I don't respond to, but I typically do not respond.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I'm just, I'm just not a dialogue person, man. I'm just not. I put my stuff out and go back into my cave.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
I
hear you.
And but And so when you emailed and said do you want to be on my podcast? Yeah, you know what? This guy's got a good vibe, and yeah, let's do it. And it was like I wasn't sure because again, this was with that Q thing, and I was like, man, I don't want to get myself into some trouble,
Yeah.
So it was. But I'm glad I did, because I'm glad we're connected, and I'm glad you're part of the team, and I couldn't think of a better person to be a teammate with.
Well, I appreciate that, Edward. Thank you. I am truly grateful, and I'm always impressed at that higher level that seems to have a hand in a lot of what we do, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely. Well, you have integrity, and you're humble, and that's in this team. That's kind of required.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, in thinking about everybody's journey is similar but different. And I was talking to you a couple weeks back, and we were talking about what we're going to discuss tonight, which is you were tasked to remote view Pi 3.14. Mm-hmm. And as you started explaining what it is, I was thinking about the things you've looked at with QAnon, with the Earth's core, and some of your other projects, your ominous feeling. And it's as if you are getting a glimpse of the fabric of our universe. You are a true explorer. You've been given access, in small pieces of, hey, here's kind of what's going on behind the scenes, things that people have tried to figure out for a very long time, and you're getting these glimpses of it. How do you deal with that? How do you process that?
Well, thank you for saying that. I think I'm going to cry. I'm easily emotional, so I end up crying during those kind of it's just one of those things, for me in my life has been a strange journey along those lines, and I learned a long time ago that certain impulses were coming in, mm-hmm. and I needed to follow those. And if I didn't, I would find myself in an unhappy place.
Yeah.
And so, in my 20s, back in the early 90s, I decided I had to start to listen to what was going on, and it led me on a really unbelievable journey. And learning and discovering that it's just never going to end, And it's like, when I say learning, what it was like, when I was a really terrible student, mm-hmm. Because I just don't have good recall ability. Meaning that, in school, as I'm sure you remember, if you remembered and repeated and regurgitated what those people wanted you to regurgitate, you got an A, and you got 10 gold stars.
Yeah.
My brain doesn't work like that, and so I was a terrible student, and it was really difficult for me to deal with. Because I didn't really, there was nobody around who could say, well, let's figure out how you could learn.
Yeah.
But at an early age, what I hoped for was that I could learn some other way, and not from trying to read a book. I'm dyslexic, so I try to read a book and I fall asleep.
Yeah.
And it takes me, literally 2 years to read a book.
Wow.
Yeah. But that's only because I'll read the same paragraph about 100 times. Mm-hmm. And what I found is that if you have a really good author like Ingo Swann or Joe McMoneagle, there's so much in a paragraph that you should reread it 100 times.
Yeah.
Because there's so many otherwise you're really missing. You could really miss what they're saying.
Yeah, and writers like that, that writing, it changes something inside of you if you're open to it. There's a process that goes on, an evolution of thought, and you really have to you can't speed read through works like that. You have to
absolutely
let it simmer and take your time.
Yeah, absolutely, because there's so much in there. They're really writing from another realm, and it's like the realm they're writing from is the realm that I like. So I'm happy to do it. But like as far as that, like you're saying, tapping into the fabric of the universe and that kind of thing, it's kind of been the journey to do that. And the way that I learn is the way that I always wanted to learn, which is from a part of my brain and my mind that processes information differently than reading things out of a book. And so when I work a target blind, a remote viewing target, and I'm blind, the part of myself, my mind, that can really comprehend things at that level gets activated, and it's fueled by other really great mechanisms in our brains, like curiosity and inspiration and those types of things. So there's fuel behind it, and then I'm in a space of comprehension, and that's I love that space because there's so much potential in there, and so I love to go in there, and that's where I go with remote viewing, and that's why I do it so much.
Yeah. And that applies, I think, just in education. And I won't go on an education tangent, but I try with my students all the time to find a way for them to relate to information that they're going to be interested, excited, and enjoyable, as opposed to you need to read these 10 pages, memorize it, there's a test tomorrow, because that doesn't work for everybody.
Nope.
So you got tasked. You got tasked again. You were blind to this target, but you got tasked to remote view pi. Now, I never thought of pi as anything more than an advanced mathematical calculation but I never thought of it in the aspect that you came across with viewing of this. And I've spoken to somebody else about it who's told me other viewers have gone through this target and have had similar experiences, which is just more corroborating data, I think, supporting what, your contact with the target. But what is pi, first of all? And, can you walk us through kind of how you got into this project?
Well, how I got to the project is when I'm not doing remote viewing with Crypto Viewing Group, I'm always doing some remote viewing, either explorational stuff on my own, or I have my one buddy, Dustin, who he's a good friend of mine, and he sets up targets for me. He's been setting up targets for years. The Q stuff and the Earth's core, that's all from him. And so he set this target up for me, and I call them my vacation targets because I can just kind of settle in, and I don't have a time constraint and that kind of thing. So I can just really go on vacation.
Right.
Go on vacation with these targets, and so usually what'll happen is I'll get okay, it's time, and I'll send him a text. Hey man, you got a target in mind? I'll say yeah, absolutely, and he'll set it up together, and he gets the way he sets the tasking up is always very interesting. And so I get to go I get to go far out, as far out as I want to go. And so with this one, it's an abstract, so it's not a physical thing. Technically, as far as the tasking or the concept, we're looking at a mathematical concept, and so of course I don't know that I'm blind with the target, so I'm starting to, as I'm going into it, I'm starting to have all kinds of interesting experiences as to whatever this target is, and I'm feeling all kinds of different things. But pi is a mathematical constant. It's the calculation of a circle, the radius of a circle through its circumference, and it's constant. So it's like a kind of quote unquote a never-ending mathematical constant. For whatever reason that is, after working this target and getting the feedback, I had to really sit with it and wonder about a lot of these things and the things that came through in my sessions about the circle and the sphere and why that's so important to us, and our obsession with calculating it, and trying to resolve our relationship with the circle or the sphere, and why it would never seem to be resolved. You know what I mean? It's like we're trying to resolve it, and it's like a trick or something. It's unresolvable, and it's very interesting because as I was looking it up and doing my research on it, what I was learning was that I think it was Archimedes, who first attempted to calculate the circumference of a circle several thousands of years ago in Greece, I believe it was. And so he was coming up with the idea that it was about 3 times the circumference. And then as we continued as a species to elevate our intelligence and become more sophisticated, the definition of that calculation began to grow. So then it was 3.1, and then 3.14, and on and on and on. And now there are literally millions. I think they've employed some AI or some machine learning, and there's millions of digits, and so it's like this never-ending thing. But that's interesting to me, that it's like the more sophisticated we have become, the more defined it has become. But then I also then have to wonder if we do resolve it, what will happen if we resolve it, and is there a timeline to that that we're moving towards, and what might that mean? But so many interesting things were coming through with that session, and so as I was going into it, I was getting this sense of like a trapped brain, like a brain that was being held captive. It was like held prisoner somehow, and it was like a strange-looking brain, which was really an interesting concept to explore, and it led me into the mind and what was a mind, and the electrical components of the mind and consciousness, and how and I was getting into this space of the sphere realm and a 360-degree awareness. Which was really, really awesome.
Before we get to that, I want to ask you about this brain real quick. You know, was it a human-looking brain? Was it something different? What impressions were you getting about this brain?
Well, that was one of the few physical things of the whole project, but it was not like a human brain. It was like a strange, advanced brain with a strange, advanced intelligence to it.
And it was captive. Something external had basically put it in a box.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, metaphorically.
Right.
It was like it was trapped.
It was trapped. Do you have any idea why it was trapped?
Well, after the sessions were done and the project was over, and I'm looking at the feedback, and I'm looking at all this, going, "What the hell just happened to me? What is all this? I don't understand any of this stuff." I started to really look at what is the sphere, how does it relate to us, and how might it, what is it in relationship to this idea of captivity,
right, or
some limitation. And so as I'm looking at if you look at the diagrams for pi, it basically looks like a clock. It's a circle with a line that goes from the center point out to the outer parameter. And so it looked like a clock. And so if we look at some of the concepts there, we can say we're held inside of time, or our relationship to time, or the way that time has been, the way that we have been conditioned to perceive time. There's an element of the idea of we're held captive within it. And it also brought me into the idea of the planet Saturn and the idea of Chronos, which is affiliated with Saturn, right, and the ideas around it, which is the governance of time, or the Time Lord.
Right.
And depending on an individual's relationship with time, it could be something that they feel that is that they are definitely under the thumb of it, or a prisoner to it, depending on how what relationship they have with time.
Right.
And so, as I'm looking at all these things that are all sphere related, Saturn has the ring around it. It's a big giant sphere. It has a big ring around it. And it was bringing me into, okay, that's kind of a macro version of it, but what about the micro version of it? And it brought me to the cellular level. And basically, we are brought into the sphere realm. And in conception, a sphere is mutated, and it duplicates, and the host is generated for us to exist in. So that could be seen as another form of captivity. Mm-hmm. But it all comes from the sphere realm. And so I started to, as this was changing my whole perception of reality, I was going through this kind of space that we are in the sphere realm, and this is one realm of however many realms there are out there, but this one that we're in is the sphere realm. We're brought into it, and we're held into it. We're held in it by other spheres, cells, atoms. They're all spherical.
Matter traps the spirit, basically. This is the realm that we exist in. Yeah. We are in the sphere realm. Mm-hmm. And so that whole thing was just changing my whole, it changed my whole perspective of reality. And it goes back to your original statement of that, with these kinds of targets, I seem to be kind of tapping into something. And it's like, for me, it's like the universe just keeps putting breadcrumb trails, putting pieces of breadcrumb in front of me, and doing it through Dustin or Crypto Viewing Group or wherever. And my task, if I so choose it, is to continue to follow them. And I will. It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. Yeah, I think about that a lot, Edward, how, we keep on this path of, like I think about my book and how I feel like it wrote itself, because I kept finding these breadcrumbs and these threads to go on that would come at just the right time, and I'd probe it and I'd go through it, and some of it was intuitive, some of it was research, and it just leads us that way. And I see that journey in you very strong as you're following this trail, and it makes me think that there's a chess player, a master chess player that's above everything, be it some divine intelligence, be it an AI that we're in, maybe, that is able to move multiple pieces at one time to get inside your tasker to say, hey, give him this target, to put you in the right place at the right time, and to give you this information here and there. Everything just seems to fall in place at the right time when you need it to find that information, don't you think?
I do, and I think, from my experience, once that's realized, then it's a matter of being able to recognize when that's happening, and follow it, and know when it's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like remote viewing is the same thing. It's a very difficult task of deciphering what is a specific type of thought, as opposed to my own creative mind inventing something.
Yeah,
and so that's it's kind of, that's the formula, whether you're on the micro or the macro on that one,
Mm-hmm. And it's about discerning between, is this data, or is this just my imagination? And
you got it, brother. You got it.
From talking to you guys, it sounds like that's part of the training as a remote viewer. Is learning to discern between the two.
You got it, brother.
Yeah.
Most people don't make it through.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that's the difficult part of it. So when people look at remote viewing results, and or they look at us or whatever, and they think, oh God, that looks so easy. It's not.
Yeah.
Because it's a whole nother kind of difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And you only realize that when it's kicking your ass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
You want to learn. You'll be learning that in about the 10,000th hour on your way to the 30 and 40,000 hour.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of conditioning in the mind, and there's a lot of mind exploration, and there's a lot of learning of how the mind works.
Yeah. I can see that. I know for me, and just trying to develop my own intuitive sense, it was a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of paying attention to the tiniest little subtleties. If something that was a micro thought that goes through so fast you could easily dismiss it, you got to learn to catch that brief glimpse of something, and then probe it without allowing your imagination to draw that logical conclusion, just to get the raw, what is this impression I'm getting? And it's tough. Yeah, it's
man.
It's really tough. So you have this brain that maybe physically, maybe or literally, or maybe metaphorically, is imprisoned. And what is the relationship of this brain to, say, us and our existence?
Well, I couldn't say for sure, because something like that, is it real, physically real, or is it metaphorical?
Right.
And because with something, with a target like pi, we're dealing with something that it's a mathematical equation. So technically, it doesn't exist outside of our own mind. So it's in a really interesting place, and I love that place where it is. Time and all kinds of other things are in that place, and so the translation mechanism, it requires a different type of translation decoding process, and so it becomes like a process of, okay, at what altitude do I want to be observing this?
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to be on ground level with blood and guts? Am I going to be on the 10th floor looking down, or in a helicopter or a satellite, or outside of the galaxy?
Yeah.
Where is my perspective looking at something like this? So with the brain, my feel. I'll put it to you this way, Dennis. It was a feeling. It was a feeling that I had, and I had to try to translate the feeling. It was an aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
It was a pure emotional sensation that I was experiencing, and I had to try to translate it into something that I could understand on paper.
Right.
And it came through as a captive, as an advanced brain thinking mechanism that was held down or held captive, or something like that. Something like that. And so how does that relate to us? Again, it's, is the sphere realm that we're in, we're held inside of our bodies. Mm-hmm. We're held on this earth. And so we can look around and we can see where that would apply in many circumstances in the host bodies that we exist in, which are based on spheres.
Yeah.
So it's a spherical host, and we are held captive within it. And so if that's the case, then there's something created it, and what is it? Who is it? And what does that mean? Is probably the question you're asking. The only answer that I can give is from my own experience in sensory deprivation, going as far into my mind, into the neural nets of my brain, to where thought creation exists, and being able to, for short periods of time, observe thought creation. And in that realm, I was able to experience that that teacher, that taskmaster, is us. We are our own taskmaster, constantly. Every second, we are the taskmaster, and the tester is us, and we can go in and find where we are that, and it's way deep in there. So you got to jump down the rabbit hole and go and find that space.
Right.
But you get close to where we're locked in to the sphere realm, and that's about all I'm willing to say on that one.
How does that make you feel, having that information, that perspective? So basically, you're, just to be clear, when you go that deep, you're seeing the blueprint for who we are and what we're dealing with on an individual level is being driven by an aspect of ourselves.
Correct. Yeah.
How do you feel about life, existence, reality when you have that perspective? What impact does that have on you?
Well, from that perspective, I have a tremendous amount of love and respect for all living things, even humans, especially humans.
Yeah.
Which is difficult place to stay. Because again, what altitude am I looking from?
Right.
When I'm on the ground level, all I see threats and danger, and fear takes over. If I'm out in the universal realm, what I can experience, and I have experienced, is that every human is infused with absolute genius. That level of our awareness is so. I mean, genius is as a term that is trying to describe something I can't even describe. And that's in everybody, every human being. If you can get through the personality and the programming, you can get to the genius of the consciousness that is inside of that host. And I was able to experience the deep love that I have for that part of who we are and what we are. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And then as I'm coming through and having to experience all the rest of the emotions that my brain can generate as I'm processing that, then it turns into deep sadness. Yeah. That people don't have access to who they are. That there's so much suffering. There's so many horrible things that have been done. The destruction of innocence, and all of those things that have built up the wall between those things. So depending on, like I say, what altitude I'm looking from will define how I feel about it emotionally. The further in I go, or the further out I go, same thing.
Yeah,
it's just love. It's genius. It's absolute genius, man. It's fucking genius.
Do you think?
And it's just like, it just fills you up, and it's where inspiration comes from, and motivation, and all the fuel that has fueled every creative genius outpouring that humans have been capable of comes right through from that channel, man. That's where it comes from. It's
Why do you think
amazing.
Why do you think so many people on the planet today have lost contact and awareness of that?
Well, that's a really big question, and a really big answer.
Yeah.
and I'll give you my answers for. It's like, you remember the movie The Matrix, the
Absolutely.
first one.
Yep.
And Neo goes to see the Oracle.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes in there, and he's all full of doubt, and he's all full of fear, and all the things that are keeping him from who he is. And the Oracle knows this. And so the Oracle says, maybe next time, kid.
Right.
How about a cookie for you?
Yeah, your next life.
Maybe in the next life, man. And eat this cookie, and before you know it, you'll be as bright as rain.
Yeah.
And she told him exactly what he needed to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Because if she would have said, you're the one, his whole trajectory would have been changed, and it would have really screwed up the timeline. And he wasn't ready to hear it. There's a really deep message in that what's being presented in that idea. And so the fullness of the answer to that question that you're asking, I don't want to have access to it yet, because I still got shit to do. And if I knew that, I might not do it. And so I'll give you my opinion. My opinion is that the human has been infected with a virus, and that virus is called fear. And fear is a mechanism that is right across the street from happiness and joy, and it can be fueled with creativity.
Right.
If you have the energy of the universe is we'll call it creativity, is the fuel of the universe, and you pump that through a fear mechanism, you'll have a lot of the world that we exist in now, of terror and destruction and hatred and all that kind of shit, and it's like a thought realm that we're trapped in, that is controlled by fear. Would you, if you unplug creativity from fear and you plug it into something else, people have a different experience. They have a completely different experience.
Right.
And what comes through them is immense genius creativity, and it pours through like it's an incredible flow of energy. And what do they look like? They experience profound levels of self-expression.
Right.
Profound levels of comprehension. They look around and they can see deeper into the meaning of the reality that we exist in. So it depends. It just depends. But we exist in the reality we exist in now. And from the Pi sessions, what I've come to want to explore is that is the sphere realm, and there are certain programs within the sphere realm that we are experiencing, and one of them is fear. Yeah, fear and destruction.
I wrestle with that a lot. I was exploring it in the book quite a bit, and I go back and forth, and it's so easy to get caught up in the fear and the negativity, and to take your data and say, that's it, you see it, we are held captive, we are prisoners, and we're being used for our creativity. But then when you keep going deeper, then you have to ask yourself, well, maybe this is just a very difficult but efficient learning mechanism. Maybe this is being created because this is what we need to learn. And when you start, as you say, depending on where your perspective is, if you're right down there on ground level and you're like, dude, shit's pretty bad around, how could there be something good behind this? But your perspective is right there. But then you pull back and you see maybe the growth collectively or on the higher realms for yourself that you're learning, you may have a different opinion. Now when I'm in the shit, I'm pissed off and angry and like, what the hell is this reality? This sucks, and then
get me the hell out of here. This is horrible.
But then when you get that perspective, and listening to you explain that, you said you might cry on this one. I'm getting emotional thinking about it because it touches on, I'd say, some of my greatest hopes and fears. Number one, is this some kind of prison, or is there something beneficial and benevolent, a reason beyond all the scary stuff why we suffer?
Yeah.
So I think that was a beautiful thing, and I thank you for sharing that with me and with everybody out there.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, man. Thank you.
This
is what I loved about remote viewing is I can it. Like I say, it allows me to utilize a part of my own consciousness that, this world that we live in really is designed to be utilized for so much. So, but it's in that realm where my comprehension level is. So, like as an example, like I was saying, like in school, I was a really terrible student. I was F's, and I was sent home, say I have terrible comprehension.
Right.
Seriously, it was written on my report card.
I believe it.
I had really, really bad comprehension skills were below average. Mm-hmm. And of course, I was devastated. It was bad enough I was getting F's, and then to get such negative reinforcement, it was hopeless.
Yeah.
So it was a long, difficult journey to get to this point. It was no help.
Yeah.
There was no help, but then I have to look at it and say, well, why? And the reason why is because on my journey, I had to find it myself.
Yeah, you did.
Not everybody's journey is that way.
No.
Everyone is unique to them, and mine just happened to be that's the way I want it. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Yeah. In order to do this, you had to earn it. You had to earn your stripes. You had to get your hazing, and go through that gauntlet to be in a position to even have the strength, the courage, the desire, the motivation to go through that. But
absolutely,
I have to give a side note, since teaching is something I'm very passionate about, and I've worked with special education students for over a decade now, and students with emotional challenges and learning disabilities. And what I've learned is that it's the system that's broken, and they don't cater to a mind like yours. We have this one track, we have the bell curve, and everybody at the top of the bell curve, we're going to groom them for college, and everybody else has a problem. The problem isn't with the student, the problem is in the method of delivery of information, because when you start changing your approach, I've gotten kids who, I had a girl, I'm not going to go on a teaching tangent here, but I had a girl 14 years old, couldn't read at all. And I found a different approach, and by the end of that year, she was reading at a second grade level. She'd sit at the lunch table and read to her friends, because I tried a different approach with her. So, but these kids, when they come to me, I'm dumb, I can't do this, I'm not good at school. No, you just, you've been conditioned by the system because your brain works differently, that different is bad, and it's not. And, I think you speak to that, and you found your own way, struggling through school, and I think you're doing an amazing job. You're pioneering things, and you're talking about things that top scientists behind closed doors are whispering about right now. So you've done it, my friend, and I think that's fascinating and amazing.
Isn't that interesting? It's like the kid voted least likely to succeed.
Yeah. Is having a conversation about pi and the mind behind, like these are things that, will the valedictorian of your class be able to have this intellectual conversation? Probably not.
Well, I tell you, again, when I was young and in school, and I was struggling so badly because I couldn't do what the other people were doing, and I wanted so badly to have a way of learning, and find out how to understand things and stuff like that. And in remote viewing, when you get to a level with it where that becomes possible. I'll give you a great example. Years ago, I wanted to experiment remote viewing people, and just people. And I'm blind to who it is. I just know that the target is a person, so It's semi-front loaded. Okay, and I had this target was selected for me, and the target was Ayn Rand. Okay,
from the author of Anthem.
Yes.
One of my favorite
Atlas
works.
Shrugged, yeah. And I, of course, I'm blind. I don't know what's Ayn Rand. and I don't know jack about Ayn Rand.
Right.
I don't, she's just, at the time, if somebody would have said, who's Ayn Rand? I would have said she's an author and wrote some books, and that's about all I know.
Right.
So anyway, I'm in this remote viewing session, and I'm going through this whole experience of a person who was known for the way that they thought. It was their thinking about things, and the way that they presented their thinking, their style of thinking was what made them known. But that wasn't that interesting to me. What was interesting to me was why that was so. And so I went through this whole process of this person's life where at a young age, they had abundance, and all of that abundance was suddenly taken away from them. And and this young person went from a luxurious life to complete destitution, near death level of destitution, having it taken away. And that experience and how they felt about it and what that experience did to their mind and their brain, and formulated their brain and their mind into a certain perspective, and that's the perspective that person projected out into the world.
Wow.
So once I got the feedback and it was like Ayn Rand, I'm like, holy shit, I don't know anything about Ayn Rand. So I did a little research, and that's exactly what happened to Ayn Rand.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could have read the biography of Ayn Rand, and if you would have said, tell me about Ayn Rand, I'd say, I don't remember any of the book. I remember going through it, but I don't know anything. But now I have an understanding of Ayn Rand, and I'll never forget it.
Yeah. Yeah, because you experienced it. Yeah, I think the closest correlation in the non-psychic world is, like what I'm doing right now. I learned so much from having a conversation. I'm that student that gets on everybody's nerves because I talk to the teacher a lot in class, because I learn through dialogue. I can pick up a book and read, but when I have that conversation, it connects with me, and it sounds like that's what you're doing. You're connecting with things in a method that's of interest to you, to things that are of interest to you, and you retain that information.
Yep, from an area of comprehension that is in there.
Yeah.
There's like the mind is beyond the threshold of awareness, which from my experience, the threshold of awareness is another sphere.
Yeah.
And I feel it is an electromagnetic sphere that is governs our brain, and that is the threshold of our awareness. And so, and what does that mean? That means when we're inside of that threshold, we're looking around. We know what's out. We live in the five sense reality, and our memories come trickling through the threshold of awareness. So if I say, Dennis, tell me about the high school you went to freshman year, you would access those memories, and those memories would trickle through the threshold of your awareness into your mind, and you'd suddenly start remembering them. But there's so much more going on there than just a memory retrieval.
Yeah.
So much more is going on.
Basically, using modern day computer terms, I mean, you're saying our stuff's stored up in a cloud somewhere, basically.
It's a massive realm that is not just retrieving memories. It's a translator. Mm-hmm. It's an experiencer. Creativity flows through it. Inspiration comes through it. All kinds of things are going on in there. It's not just a storehouse of memories like we've been kind of conditioned into putting a governor.
Yeah, we've been trapped into our thinking, limited. I'd say, in what
absolutely.
We've been told.
Yeah, when you're told it's just your memory storage, then then that's all it is, and I guess I don't have to think about it anymore.
Imagine if that governor was loosened, what we'd be able to access more comfortably.
Goddamn right.
Because we're so limited by our belief system. will start to have a certain thought, and you'll be like, oh, that doesn't jive with that. Nope, that goes against it. And then you just stop the thought and you shut it down. The same thing with your intuitive, I'm getting this psychic. Nope, that's not possible. I could, nope. Dick said it. He says it every week. He says, remote viewing, we just write everything down. You're better to just put it all out there and not question it.
That's right.
Because, we have that natural filter to shut off that flow of information. I'm thinking about, it's interesting how you're talking about you use remote viewing to gather information. I remember being a kid, and I've always had an interest in this stuff, and watching a documentary about Edgar Cayce. And what he used to do, he would take a book and he'd put it under his pillow at night, and he'd go to sleep, and he'd wake up and he would learn what was in the book. I can't tell you how many nights in high school I slept with books under my pillow. Not once did I learn anything from it, but I think, that was his method. That's what he, somehow he connected with it. What advice do you have to somebody out there listening right now who's going through that spiritual struggle and trying to figure out, what do I do? How do I get more of this? What advice do you have for them, Edward?
Oh, man. Well, I'd say take note of your expectations, because your expectations are mental constructs,
right?
And probably barriers, and they're keeping you locked in. But that's just part of the course. That's what it's about.
Right.
It's like you're building the scaffolding, to get up there, and you have to, in my opinion, you have to learn to be okay with being wrong.
Yeah.
And if you have a difficulty with that, again, the taskmaster is within each one of us, and who we are at that level. We're not governed by our pissy little emotions.
Right.
We're way beyond that. Way beyond that. So as we come through the tunnel into this reality, and we're all like, pissy and moaning and me, and it's so hard, and all this, this childish things that we go through. That part of us that is the taskmaster doesn't deal and doesn't care. This is a tough realm to be in, and it's a survival realm.
Yeah.
And to live within it, we have to survive, and to survive, you have to be tough. And so, so that's why remote viewing. So if people were to take on remote viewing as a method to assist them to learn anything, do it just to learn that. You will be faced with how you feel about being wrong over and over and over and over again. Like I say, remote viewings will mop the floor with you and not shed a tear for your agony.
Right.
And that's good, and that's why most people never make it past a level 1. Because they can't deal with that. Go ahead.
I just wanted to interject real quick, coming back to our education discussion. Failure nowadays is kind of frowned upon in aspects of, we don't want students to feel that bad for failing. And I say all the time, as a teacher, you should fail. If you're not failing in school, you're not in the right class, because failure is a part of the learning process. And that horrible, crappy feeling you get when you fail a test is necessary for that growth, for you to think about it and stew on it and to learn whatever introspection and lessons you get from that. So by denying ourselves that failure, we're denying ourselves that growth, I think.
I completely agree. and it's a big part of the test.
Yeah.
It's a big part of the test, and that's not just remote viewing. It's if it's the spiritual path somebody's on, or the growth path, or they're trying to kind of understand who they are, what they are, and all that kind of stuff. And that doesn't just apply to remote viewing targets.
Right.
I just went through several experiences of that, dealing with personal issues,
Right.
personal things in my life, where I thought it was a certain way, and I found out that I was completely wrong. And again, because we are the taskmaster, I am given the opportunity then. What do I do now? Do I dig in my heels and go, wah, 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 I'm not wrong, I'm right, wah, wah, wah? Or do I be able to recognize it and keep moving forward? That's the test. So we're always, like I say, we are the taskmaster, and we are testing ourselves constantly. And once you learn, explore, get an understanding of the terrain, the mechanism, it becomes easier. And as it becomes easier, you're moving a little bit into that threshold of awareness and through it and beyond it. And there's where the greater, what people call their spirituality, or
Right.
People call it all kinds of names for it. But once you get over there, there's no name for it. Those are just labels that we require down here as a goal or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
We got to categorize everything to process it at this level.
We do.
You're absolutely right.
We sure do, man.
We're coming up to the end of our time, Edward. Do you have any final thoughts or comments on everything we talked about?
I will say that remote viewing Pi has had a profound effect on me in ways that is continuing to unfold, as it should be, because that's the life that I accept. That it's I'm moving through the galaxy and through the universe, and this fella had a great saying. He got it from Native Americans, and they were talking about the times that we're in, and their analogy was there's a great river, and it's moving very fast. And if you jump in the river and you try to cling to the edge, you'll be torn to pieces.
Right.
But if you get to the center and you just float, you'll move with the energy, with the momentum, and you'll be fine, and you'll be moving at great speeds. And that's us.
I was just going to say, that's like the saying, instead of swimming against the current, learn to surf, flow with it.
You got it, man. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's one thing that we can all say for certain is that we are hurtling through space. Nothing is stagnant. Everything is moving. We're constantly moving, and we never stop. And realize that, accept it, and live it. And you'll, like with my remote viewing, I don't have any one style. It's constantly evolving,
right,
and changing constantly, and it's because of that.
Powerful, Edward. This conversation, at least for me, and I'm hoping for our listeners out there as well, I'm sure it will. As I spoke to you about this after you did the session, we were going back and forth for a while, and you were just saying it's still sitting, I'm still processing, and I feel it now. There's something going on inside of me. It connected things and affirmed certain things that I had inside of me that I needed to be aware of, brought forth, and that was This was a very helpful, powerful conversation for me, Edward. And again, I thank you for taking the time to share it. It's been something special here.
Thanks. That it makes it very rewarding for me.
Yeah.
And I hope I don't start crying over here.
I'm not trying to make you cry, but I could easily sit here and cry with this moment here tonight. I love crying, man. It's one of my favorite things to do. It lets me know that I'm close to the source of something. Yeah, it's a powerful thing when you can let that emotion, that raw emotion, just go freely.
Absolutely.
How can people find you and connect with you, Edward?
Well, they can find me on my YouTube page under my name, Edward Riordan. They can find us through the Crypto Viewing Group, which we are. I don't want to speak for you, but I think I can. We're both very proud of this group to be a part of it.
Yeah.
I'm very proud and grateful, very grateful to be in this group with you guys, and so they can definitely look up the Crypto Viewing Group on YouTube, and we've got the Patreon page for folks who want to take the journey with us, take the deep dive, and we go in as far as we can go. We go down the rabbit hole.
We do,
and it's great because we're just some people who are like we're jumping the deep end kind of people.
Yeah,
all of us.
Yeah, every one of us.
You know it, man. Fuck the shallow end. It's in the deep end. And you know what? This baby doesn't. There's no bottom.
No, there is no bottom. And I think
let's see how far we can go, man.
I think that's what's amazing about what we're doing. And you say it on your channel all the time. The work that we're doing on the team is important. And we have fun with woo-woo targets like this. We really do enjoy exploring this stuff, but we also look at regularly verifiable targets that have verifiable aspects to it. And if you want to understand where the world is going in the immediate future, meaning the next 1 to 10 years, I highly encourage you to watch what we're doing on the team, because there's a lot of, I give hints all the time on my show, but start with the YouTube channel, start looking at Dick's content, and, but I encourage you to pull the trigger, even if it's just for a month, and check out what's going on Patreon and start getting that data and seeing how everything fits together, because this is fascinating and it's very important what's coming out of the team.
Absolutely. We are, like I mentioned, I think a couple of shows ago, in my opinion, we're moving through the shift of the ages. And we, in the Crypto Viewing Group, are doing our best to get a view of that from a little higher elevation,
right?
To see how the future is formulating. The future is an interesting place, and it's just a bunch of potential energy. There's a lot of tentacles they're orchestrating and weaving together a tapestry of potential energy, and that's what the future is. And we look at that tapestry, and we love it. We absolutely love it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that was eloquently said. Not bad for a guy who struggled through school, Edward. I'll tell you that.
You know what I loved about school, Dennis?
What's that?
My buddies, my friends.
Yeah.
I went and I got to spend all day with my friends.
Yeah.
I loved it.
And that's important. Definitely important. Yep. Well, listen, Edward, I'm thankful and proud to call you one of my friends and my buddies there. So I appreciate you again taking the time to come on the show. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. And why don't you stay on the line if you just want to say goodbye to our listeners, and then hold the line, and we'll connect afterwards.
Thanks, Dennis.
All right. Thanks, Edward. And again, you can connect with Edward through his YouTube page, and I'll have the links in the show notes up at sixcentsmedia.net and in the newsletter as well. So thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you.
That is one of those conversations that's going to stay with me for quite some time. Edward's mind and the way he shares it, I think is a real gift. And I'm beyond thankful that I had this opportunity to speak with him again, and that I can call him a friend. It's amazing what he's exploring and he's looking at. I could take that discussion into so many different directions, and just from an educational standpoint, he's proof right there for those of you out there that are struggling on this journey and on this path. Embrace the failure, embrace the hardship. I know that's easier said than done, because when you're in it, it just sucks. But once you go through it enough, at least I can tell myself now, I'll get through this. There's something that I'm going to gain from this, no matter how bad it is. My father dying is probably the worst thing I ever experienced. If he hadn't died the way he did, I wouldn't be doing this show. I wouldn't have connected with the wonderful people that I get to connect with each week. And I wouldn't have written Food for the Archons. And my dad's death was horrible, and I'd give anything to have him back. But through that journey, I learned something. And in hearing Edward's explanation of viewing that higher self and this being us and driving kind of what's going on, that gives me hope that it's not just some evil archon sitting out there saying, I just want you to suffer because I just don't care about you. That's a very cold, lonely, scary thing to think about. So I'm hopeful from a conversation like this, from a mind like Edward's, with the data that I see him bringing back. And I hope all of you are as well. Just a great, great conversation. So if you haven't done so already, please check out his YouTube channel. Check out the Crypto Viewing team. What's going on is we're providing so much information, and as truth seekers, that's what we want, right? And I take pride in sharing what I believe is of value, is credible, and it's entertaining. And when we're wrong, we admit it, because we understand that failure sometimes happens, and it's a part of the process, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. So I have no problems admitting when I'm wrong, just like the team has no issues with that as well. And be sure, please, check it out, Food for the Archons. It's live now. You can get it on Kindle, and you can get yourself a paperback copy as well. There's links at sixcentsmedia.net/archons, or you can go right to Amazon and just type in Food for the Archons. It's been a long time coming with this project for those of you that follow the show. So here it is, putting my money where my mouth is. Check it out, and I'd love to hear from you. All right, my friends, I'm kind of fried. When I got off the line with Edward, I had to take about 15 minutes just trying to process that conversation. That was a big one. So I'm going to retire for the evening, and I'll be back next week. Thank you all for your continued support and for your interest. As always, check out the YouTube channel. I've been throwing up some vlogs pretty regularly. Not every day, but semi-regularly there. So I hate saying it, but we're working with algorithms here, and we need the likes, the subscribes, the notifications. You guys know the drill. I'm not going to bore you with that, but if anything that you come into contact with, if you find it of value, if you just give it a like or some kind of engagement, a ranking, whatever platform you're on, it helps tremendously. So, and share it with your friends. All right, guys, I'm not going to patronize you with that stuff anymore. All right, that's it. I'm Dennis Nappy II. This has been another episode of the Seeker Podcast, where small changes among the masses can have a massive impact around the world. I encourage you to be that change. Never stop questioning. Keep an open mind, and let your intuition be your guide. Thanks for listening.